I moved into an old brick apartment about a month ago. I'm 35 and had just lost my job. I thought working from home in a quieter part of the city would help me focus on my graphic design projects. The place had creaky floors and peeling wallpaper, which I found charming. It felt cozy, a nice escape from everything else. On my third night, while I was deep into a project, I heard a tapping noise above me. It was rhythmic, like someone drumming their fingers. At first, I thought it was a neighbor's late-night hobby. It didn't bother me much, and I kept working. As the week went on, the tapping grew louder. Some nights, I could hear soft whispers mixed in. I tried to listen closely, but I couldn't catch what they were saying. One evening, I saw a shadow dart across my ceiling. It was quick, like a flicker. I shrugged it off, but a tight knot formed in my stomach. I didn't see who or what it could have been. Later that week, while I was working late, I heard whispers from the hallway. They sounded near, like someone was right outside my door. I opened it, but the corridor was empty. My heart raced as I stood there. I peeked around the corner, but nothing was there. The silence felt thick, like it was waiting for something. I wasn't sure if I wanted to hear the tapping again or hide from it. I often sat in the dark, staring at the walls, wishing I could ignore the sounds. Was it the building settling? Were the neighbors just restless? I thought I might ask them about it, but I could never remember seeing them. They always seemed quiet. A chill ran down my spine at the thought. Then one night, things escalated again. I was working in the living room. The tapping started again, louder this time. My head felt heavy, tension building. Just then, the whispers returned, clearer this time, "Help me." I froze, felt a chill wash over me. I rushed to the door, but, again, nothing was there. I backed away and took a deep breath. Surely it was my mind playing tricks. Still, the oppressive feeling hung in the air. Suddenly, I felt something brush against me, a cold breeze. I whipped around, but it was just the empty room. I felt uneasy, my heart thumping. Then, it came again, a whisper, "Why are you here?" I spun around, expecting to see someone. But there was nothing to meet my eyes. There was no explanation, just endless creeping shadows and sounds echoing in my mind. I began to doubt everything about my new home. I still hear those whispers sometimes when I try to sleep. I wonder who needs help. I wonder if I should have done something. But now, it's just me, alone with the memories of my first month in a place that felt strangely wrong. The next day, I decided to look around the building. I needed to find out if anyone else was experiencing the same things. The corridor was quiet, the walls lined with old paintings that felt like eyes watching me. I knocked on the first door I saw. No answer. I tried another. Still nothing. Feeling a mix of frustration and unease, I made my way to the common area. It was dimly lit and had a musty smell. A few dusty chairs were scattered around, but it was empty. I felt a strange pull toward a door at the far end that was slightly ajar. My instincts told me to leave it alone, but my curiosity pushed me forward. I pushed the door open, and it creaked loudly. Inside, the room was cluttered with old furniture and boxes. It looked like nobody had touched it in years. A chill ran through me as I scanned the room. I stepped in, hoping to find something, a clue, maybe. The air felt heavy, as if burdened with unspoken secrets. That's when I saw it. Taped to the back of the door was a worn-out note. I could barely make out the faded letters. "This place is not what it seems. They are watching." My heart raced. Who was watching? What did it mean? I glanced over my shoulder, expecting to see someone behind me, but the room was empty. I crumpled the note into my pocket. I had to get out of there. My mind raced with possibilities as I made my way back to my apartment. Did anyone else know what was happening? Or was I the only one? Later that evening, as I tried to work, the tapping returned. This time, I felt the need to confront it. "What do you want?" I shouted, half hoping for an answer, half terrified I might get one. Silence followed, stretching for what felt like hours. Then, without warning, the whispers came again. "Help me." It was clearer than before, more insistent. I felt the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Against my better judgment, I got up and walked toward the source of the sound. I followed it through the hallway, my heart pounding like a drum. The whispers led to the stairs going down. I hesitated. Was I really going to pursue this? But the feeling that something was calling me, pleading for assistance, was too strong to ignore. I stepped down into the darkness below. The air changed, growing cooler as I descended. Each step echoed ominously against the concrete walls. I reached the bottom and looked around. The basement was dimly lit, with flickering bulbs casting eerie shadows. Then, I heard it again. "Help me." Closer this time. I turned toward the sound, and my breath caught in my throat. There was a figure at the far corner, obscured by darkness. I couldn't see their face, but something about the way they stood sent a chill through me. "Who are you?" I asked, but the figure didn't respond. Instead, it seemed to beckon me closer. I took a hesitant step forward, and that's when everything went dark. The lights flickered out, plunging me into total blackness. I could no longer see anything, just the echo of my heart in the silence surrounding me. I felt a presence, something closing in. Then, I heard a voice, a whisper that sent shockwaves through my body, "You shouldn't be here." I stumbled back, my instincts screaming for me to escape. I turned, but the darkness made it hard to find the direction of the stairs. My hands brushed against the cool concrete walls, trying to steady myself. My heart raced as I heard whispers again, echoing through the basement. "You shouldn't be here. You shouldn't be here," it repeated like a chant. I felt a rush of panic. Was it the figure or something else? I took a deep breath and forced my feet to move. I needed a way out. I groped blindly, feeling for the stairs. The whispers intensified, swirling around me, merging into a single voice. "Help me." It was more frantic now, and I felt a pressure in my chest as if I was being pushed further into the shadows. The moment I thought I was close to the stairs, my foot hit something solid. I gasped as I stumbled over a pile of boxes. My heart raced as I steadied myself. Even in the dark, the whispers pushed me toward whatever was in the corner. Curiosity mixed with fear, pulling me against my better judgment. I hated feeling trapped like this. I leaned down, squinting to make out shapes in the dark. That's when I saw it, a small, dusty mirror propped against the wall beside the figure. I reached for it, my fingers grazing the surface. It was cold. The whispers grew louder, urging me on. I couldn't shake the feeling that this mirror held a secret, something important. I picked it up. The metal frame felt rough in my hands, worn with age. In the dim light of the flickering bulbs, I caught a glimpse of movement behind me in the mirror. My heart fell into my stomach. There was no one there. I spun around, expecting to see the figure, but all I found was emptiness. I glanced back at the mirror. The reflections didn't just show the basement, they revealed hints of life, a woman, her face obscured, mouthing words. "Help me," the lips formed silently, mirroring the whispers. Fear washed over me. Who was she? Had she been trapped here long ago? I dropped the mirror, my hands shaking. The sound of shattering glass echoed in the dark, loud and jarring. I turned to flee, scrambling toward the stairs. The oppressive whispers turned to a frantic blend of shouts, "You have to help her. You can't leave." Reaching the handrail, I propelled myself up the stairs. The voices clawed at my mind as I pushed through the doorway at the top, slamming it shut behind me. I leaned against it, gasping for breath. All I could hear now was my heartbeat pounding in my ears. But the whispers didn't stop. They pulsed through the walls, resonating with an urgency that left me restless. I stumbled back to my apartment, locking the door behind me. I could still hear them, subtle yet insistent, creeping into my thoughts. I needed answers. That woman in the mirror, she meant something. I pulled out the crumpled note from my pocket. This place is not what it seems. What did I just uncover? As I tried to process everything, I felt a sudden chill. I turned to the window, and gasped. Something was moving outside. The shadows had come for me. I stood frozen in front of the window, my breath hitching in my throat. The shadows outside shifted and swirled, like smoke dancing in the wind. I squinted, trying to see what was there. A figure? A trick of the light? I couldn't tell. Then I saw it, a pale face, just for a second, peeking through the branches of the trees. My heart raced again. I stumbled back from the window. Who was out there? Were they watching me? I tried to rationalize it, but every thought spiraled into anxiety. I flicked off the light, plunging the room into darkness, hoping to obscure my presence. As I crouched down, I remembered the mirror. The woman's words echoed in my mind. Help me. What if what had happened in the basement was linked to the figure outside? The fear I felt transformed into determination. I needed to figure this out. I moved quietly toward the front door, ready to peek through the peephole. Then, a loud thud came from the hallway. My heart jumped again. I froze. The sound wasn't typical, more like something heavy being dropped or thrown. It echoed through the stillness of my apartment. Panic surged. I wanted to run, but I wouldn't know where to go. Hello? I called out, my voice trembling. No response. Just silence. I waited, straining my ears for any sign of movement. A slow creak followed by shuffling footsteps made my blood run cold. Someone was definitely in the house. Instinct kicked in. I snatched my phone from the table, turning off the screen to keep it dark. I backed away from the door and moved toward the kitchen, hoping to find something I could use as a weapon. A knife would do. The footsteps sounded closer, almost at my door. As I rummaged through the drawer, I felt a sudden rush of air behind me. I spun around, gripping the knife tightly. But the kitchen was empty, nothing was there. My breath began to quicken again. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, there was someone in my home. Leave me alone. I screamed into the empty space. Instantly, the shuffling stopped. All I could hear now was the pounding of my heart. I glanced toward the doorway. With every passing second, I felt the urge to bolt, but my feet wouldn't cooperate. Then, something caught my eye. On the floor where I had dropped the shattered mirror, a small shard glimmered in the faint light from the street outside. There was an unusual design etched into it, swirling patterns that looked almost alive. I stepped closer, curiosity overpowering my fear. That's when I noticed the whispers again, softer now but insistent. Help her, please. It was the same voice. Not just a voice, an echo of desperation. The shard seemed to pulsate gently, forming images in my mind. The woman from the mirror was reaching out, pleading for release. I felt a sudden pulse of energy flow through me. Could this shard be a connection? A way to confront whatever was haunting this place? But before I could process everything, the front door creaked open, making my pulse spike. I turned in time to see a silhouette enter the apartment, and my blood ran cold. Someone was here. And this time, I couldn't hide. I didn't want to breathe. I felt like each gasp would give my presence away. The silhouette moved cautiously, almost like a predator trying to find its prey. I clutched the knife tighter, my knuckles turning white. I stood still, willing myself not to make a sound. Who is there? I managed to whisper, my voice barely above a breath. No answer came, only the sound of footsteps crossing the living room, their weight heavy. I could feel every pulse in my body echoing in the silence. Then I heard a voice, low and almost familiar. "Help me." The same words from the mirror reverberated in my mind. My heart raced. Could it be the woman? Was she here? I took a step back, confused. Suddenly, the figure froze. I could barely make out its shape. It was tall and seemed to be dressed in shadows. I felt the urge to move, to escape, but my legs felt like lead. I cursed my own fear as I watched it turn slightly. The faint outline of the figure's face caught the streetlight, and I gasped. It wasn't just pale, it was translucent, almost shimmering. The figure raised a hand towards me, fingers stretching as if trying to connect. I wanted to scream, to run, but I was rooted in place. The knife felt heavy in my grip. I simply couldn't bring myself to use it. "Please help," it whispered again, the voice dripping with pain. Every instinct in me screamed to flee, but something deep inside urged me to stay. I thought about the shard of glass, and the lingering image of the woman. If she wanted help, could this figure be connected? The creature stepped forward slowly, and for a moment, I thought I could see its eyes pleading for something I couldn't understand. A gust of cold air swept through the room, sending a chill down my spine. The lights flickered, and for a moment, everything went dark. I felt the grip of panic as shadows enveloped me. Just as quickly, the lights returned, illuminating the space. But the figure was gone. I looked around frantically, searching for any sign of movement. When I turned back to the kitchen, the shard was gone too. I cursed under my breath. Where had it gone? My heart pounded as I rushed to the living room, scanning every corner, every shadow. It was impossible had I imagined it. Then I caught a glimpse of something in the small mirror still hanging on the wall. My own reflection stared back at me, wide-eyed and fearful. But beneath my reflection, I saw it again, a face staring back, pressed against the other side of the glass. That was when I knew I had to leave. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over the coffee table. I grabbed my phone again and rushed toward the door. But just as I reached for the handle, the sound of my own voice echoed back to me. "Help me, please." It wasn't mine, it was the woman's voice, resonating through the air. I hesitated, caught between the door and the echo. Part of me wanted to escape, but another part felt drawn back toward the mirror. The heart-racing conflict left me breathless. I needed answers, but at what cost? And then came a knock, sharp and loud, shattering the silence. It was coming from the door. I froze, heart hammering against my ribs. The knock sounded again, heavy and urgent. My mind raced. Who could it be? Whoever or whatever had just terrified me in my own home couldn't be more dangerous than that gnawing voice echoing in my head. Yet, part of me was paralyzed by fear. A third knock slammed against the door, shaking the frame. "Open up." The voice was deep, demanding. I swallowed hard. There was something unsettling about it. It didn't sound familiar, but there was a weight to those words that made my skin crawl. I glanced back at the mirror, the image still lingering beneath the surface, almost begging for attention. The idea of opening that door felt like stepping into a trap. "Who is there?" I called out, my voice shaking. "It's Jay. I saw your light." The voice softened but still felt heavy with urgency. What was Jay doing here? I remembered him from a few houses down. We had exchanged polite nods but never had a real conversation. I could feel my paranoia creeping back, drowning me in uncertainty. Should I trust him? "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice rising slightly. Yeah. "I'm fine," I lied. "What do you want?" "I heard something strange coming from your place. I thought I'd check on you." The image of the figure flashed through my mind, the needy whispering, the cold touch. I glanced at the window. It was dark outside, nothing but the flickering streetlight illuminating the night. Was Jay lying? I felt like I was in some horror movie, sitting on the cusp of making the wrong choice. "Just go," I whispered to myself, trying to muster my courage. But my feet felt glued to the floor. With a shaky hand, I reached for the door. Just as I was about to unlock it, I heard another voice behind me, faint and distant. "Help me!" The words wrapped around me like a fog, all sense of reason dissolving. I turned back sharply to the mirror, staring hard into the shifting shadows. Panic surged through me. Was I losing my mind? "Please, just open the door." J's voice brought me back to the moment. I cleared my throat, managing to string together a thought. "I'm not feeling well." The lie tumbled out, forced and unconvincing. "Are you sure? I can help." Suddenly, the lights flickered again. I felt the room grow cold. My breath turned to mist in the air. This time, I took a step toward the mirror, transfixed. Shape after shape passed by, murky and undefined, each seemingly begging for escape. Then, in a flash, I remembered the shard of glass removed from the kitchen, a dangerous tool, yet perhaps the only means of confrontation. My heart raced, and I turned back to the door. "I'll be right back," I yelled, knowing it was a lie. I had no intention of opening the door. I rushed toward the kitchen, adrenaline pumping through my veins like fire. That's when I heard the sound of footsteps inside. My blood ran cold. Someone was in the house. I was not alone. The footsteps were slow, deliberate, echoing in the silence of my home. I pressed my back against the wall and scanned the kitchen for something, anything, that could protect me. My heart raced as the footsteps creaked on the floor above me. I was frozen, consumed by terror. What if it was Jay after all? Or worse, what if it was something else? I grabbed the shard of glass off the counter, feeling its sharp edge dig into my palm. It offered little comfort. Even with it in my hand, I could hardly move. Each second stretched like an eternity. "Hello? Is anyone there?" A whisper traveled down the stairs, soft but clear. It sounded different now, more like a plea than a command. I held my breath, straining to hear. "Help me!" It was that voice again, enduring, pleading, but this time, it resonated from above me. I took a cautious step back, feeling the chill of the tile against my bare feet. My mind spun. This wasn't happening. I had to stay rational. My thoughts raced as I contemplated my next move. I could run for the door. I could escape and ask Jay for help. But what if he had orchestrated all of this, lured me with his facade? Or worse, what if he had come to check on me for a more sinister reason? The footsteps resumed, now shifting closer. Whoever or whatever was upstairs had my attention. I couldn't stay here any longer, waiting for shadows to manifest. I needed to know what was going on. I steeled myself and made a decision. I edged toward the stairs, quiet as a mouse, clutching the glass shard tightly. With every step upward, the air thickened with dread. I felt like a prey stepping into a predator's lair. As I reached the landing, I noticed the hallway was dark, illuminated only by a dim light spilling from a cracked door at the end. It was ajar, just enough to tempt me. I hesitated for a moment, my breath hitching. "Help me!" The voice came again, louder now, as if urging me to come closer. It wasn't TJ. This one felt more like a wraith, lost and desperate. I took a step forward, inching toward the door. My pulse thundered in my ears. "Who are you?" I called, my voice trembling. Silence fell. The air turned thick, almost suffocating. I held the shard in front of me like a shield, expecting an attack. I felt vulnerable and exposed, every instinct telling me to flee, but I was too intrigued by the soft, mournful cry. What if someone really needed my help? Finally, with one trembling hand, I pushed the door open just enough to peek inside. That's when I saw a figure huddled in the corner, its back turned to me. It was obscured by shadows, but the disheveled hair hung low, an eerie silhouette against the wall. "Help me!" it whispered again, cranking the intensity of my fear to a boiling point. I gasped and stumbled back, heart racing as confusion turned to dread. I was not supposed to be feeling this way in my home, yet I felt the icy fingers of something otherworldly wrapping around my throat. In that moment, everything changed. The silence shattered, and the lights flickered to full brightness, revealing the figure in horrifying clarity. I turned to bolt, but as panic gripped me, I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps behind me, moving in quick succession. I was trapped. That was the moment I realized, running wouldn't save me this time. My heart hammered against my chest, but a primal instinct urged me to stay still. I couldn't run. Whatever was in that room held some power over me, like a magnet drawing me closer. The faint silhouette shifted slightly, turning its head without fully revealing its face. "Help me," the voice cracked, pleading. Each syllable dripped with a desperation that chilled my blood. I wanted to scream, to bolt down the stairs, to find the nearest exit. But the words caught in my throat. Instead, I found myself taking a cautious step forward, an involuntary response like a moth to a flame. "Please, who are you?" I managed to ask, my voice shaky, barely above a whisper. This felt unreal, like a dark dream I couldn't wake up from. The figure straightened, its movements slow and deliberate, gaining a shape against the stark light. I could make out layers of tattered clothing, eyes dark and hollow focused on me. Something twisted in my gut, I couldn't help but feel an unexplainable connection with this thing, whatever it was. "Help me," it repeated, but now, it was more urgent. "I'm trapped." A chill raced through me, a burst of recognition. I remembered moments from the past. My nightmares often took this shape, dark figures begging for help. Could this be just another manifestation of my mind's twisted creation? As the figure shifted, the door behind it creaked open wider, revealing more of the room. I squinted, trying to discern the details. There were old, dusty furniture pieces, and the place reeked of mildew, like it hadn't been touched in ages. My guts twisted, I felt a heaviness in the air. Just then, the footsteps behind me grew louder. I turned, but the hallway was empty. The soft carpet muffled my breaths, I was hyper-aware of the echo of thuds coming closer. But how could that be? There was no one there. I turned back to the figure. "What do you mean, trapped?" My heart raced, and I barely recognized my own voice. "Time is running out," it said, its tone catching on the edge of despair. "You have to." Before it could finish, there was a loud crash from downstairs, shaking the walls around me. I jumped, adrenaline pumping through my veins. The figure flinched at the sound. "No. You can't let it in." It shrieked, suddenly rising to its feet. The loveless eyes locked onto mine, and I felt an icy fright clawing at my chest. I barely had time to process its warning before the footsteps behind me thundered to a halt. I whipped around, heart racing as dread filled me once more. "Help me." The figure begged from behind me, but the urgency in its voice couldn't drown out what was now very much present in my home. Suddenly, the front door swung open with a force that rattled the frames. A silhouette appeared in the doorway, a stark outline against the night. I couldn't see a face, but I could feel the malice in the air simply radiating from it. Instinct kicked in, and panic took hold. I had to choose. Stay and help the figure, or run and face whatever was now lurking in my home. Time slowed as I stood there, caught between realities: the figure who needed help and the unknown threat that had just entered. I was teetering on the edge, and with each passing moment, the darkness crept closer. I felt the weight of the moment pressing down on me, each second stretching into eternity. The figure in the room was still begging for help, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this new presence might be the real danger. I glanced between the two, panic swirling in my gut. "Who are you?" I shouted, trying to draw the figure's attention away from the door. The silhouette in the doorway remained still, but I could feel its gaze burning into me. "Don't look at it." The figure cried out, its voice now laced with desperation. "You have to choose." What was I supposed to choose? The figure looked so helpless, but the thing at the door felt like pure danger. I took a step back into the darkness of the hallway, my heart pounding like a drum. "Get away from the door!" I yelled, taking another cautious step back. Whatever was in that place felt like it was linked directly to my face, and I could hardly breathe. The door's silhouette shifted again, a dim outline that broke the dull light of the hallway. I could barely make out its shape, but it felt alive, like it was breathing in sync with my dread. "Please," the figure said, its voice quivering. "Help me." I turned back to it, the conflict ripping through me. "How?" A sudden crash from below shattered the moment, a sound like glass breaking. I jumped, my instincts screaming at me. The figure's eyes widened in fear. "Hurry!" I had to act. I moved toward the figure, my feet heavy as if they were stuck in mud. "What do you mean by trapped? What do I have to do?" In that instant, the light flickered, casting shadows that danced along the wallpaper, creating shapes that twisted and flowed like nightmares manifesting. I stumbled back, disoriented. "Run!" came the urgent whisper from the figure, but before I could react, the door burst open further. A gust of cold air rushed in, wrapping around my body, almost like fingers reaching for me. Then it stepped into the room. I couldn't look away, frozen by a mix of fear and helpless curiosity. I could see now a humanoid shape, but something about its features made my skin crawl. The eyes glowed faintly, but not like lights, there was no warmth, just an abyss that threatened to swallow everything. "Stay!" it commanded, its voice a low rumble, echoing in the empty hallway. I felt the urge to listen, just like the figure behind me. It was as if both wanted something from me, but how could I trust either? Throwing caution to the wind, I turned and ran toward the figure. "What do you want?" "Only you can free me," it said, its voice drowning in tension. "But you must face it first." I looked back at the creature in the doorway. It was closer now, advancing slowly, its smile a wide, unnatural curve. "What does that mean?" I shouted, dread curling in my stomach. Something behind me shifted. The figure had taken a step closer to the door. "Now! You have to fight." Everything in me screamed to run, but I couldn't abandon the figure now. A plan formed in my mind, one that felt reckless yet necessary. Just as I lunged forward, my heart racing wildly, I heard a crackling sound above me, and then the lights went out. Darkness enveloped me, shrouding everything in an eerie stillness. I had to act, but I couldn't see. I could only hear their voices, the pleading from the figure and the low growl from the creature. The heaviness of the moment pressed down on me, like the weight of all my fears. Then, silence. And in that silence, I suddenly realized I had to find a way out. I stood in the pitch-black hallway, my mind racing. The absence of light felt like a suffocating blanket, wrapped tightly around me, and neither the figure nor the creature moved. A chilling realization washed over me, I couldn't trust either presence, but I was drawn in by both. "I won't abandon you." I shouted into the darkness, pleading for a response. I felt the figure draw closer, the chill from its presence as palpable as ice against my skin. "Do not give in. Choose your fight wisely." It was a whisper now urgent and desperate. The air thrummed with tension, a standoff brewing in the murky abyss. I couldn't see, and every instinct in my body urged me to flee. The cold draft intensified, swirling around me, tightening like a noose. Suddenly, the lights flickered back to life. The figure loomed closer, its features clearer now but still shadowed. It looked strange yet familiar, like a half-forgotten dream. I could see its hollow eyes pleading for release, but behind me, the creature waited, dark and formless. "Please help." The figure pressed, extending its hand toward me. "Help how?" I stammered, confusion mingling with fear. My grip on reality felt tenuous as the creature slid closer, its movements almost a slither. I sensed it draw power from the fear it conjured in me. "You must embrace the truth." It spoke urgently, but the figure's meaning felt elusive, as if it were speaking in riddles. I took a deep breath, anguish curling in my gut. "What truth?" I asked, my voice trembling. "The truth of your fears. Only by confronting them can you help me escape," it urged, and for a breathless second, I estimated the distance between me, the figure, and the creature. The weight of my choice threatened to crush me. In an instant decision, I swerved away from the figure, driving toward the shadowy silhouette in the doorway. "What do you want from me?" I shouted, my pulse racing. "Show yourself." A low laugh echoed, reverberating around me. "I want what she cannot have," it hissed, voice sinuous and twisting around me. "Power and fear entwined, the essence of your marrow." I felt a tingle travel down my spine, but the certainty that rose within me surprised even myself. "I refuse to be afraid," I shouted, adrenaline surging. I moved toward the glow of the creature, grasping my fear with both fists. The rush of terror I had lived with throughout my time in this apartment crumbled under my resolve. The creature lurched forward, its silhouette brushing against me. For a moment, I found my footing, my fear turning into something else, fuel. "I fear you no longer," I proclaimed, pushing through every memory of dread, betrayal, and darkness that lurked in my life. The warmth of conviction coursed through me. I had run from my demons long enough. Suddenly, the air erupted with energy, a pulse ignited between us. The figure behind me blasted forward, breaking the barrier between us, but I stayed locked to the creature, my eyes blazing. "You can't have me, let her go." Light flickered wildly, the shadowy aura of the creature wavered. For an instant, I could see the urgency in its eyes flipping to a desperate rage. The space around us trembled as if the world itself was siding with my defiance. Then, in a burst of sound, the creature's form began to dissolve, pulled apart by the very light that I had summoned through facing my fears. An agonized shriek filled the apartment, echoing through my bones as it faded into nothingness. In that moment, silence enveloped the room. I turned, breathless, to the figure. Its face, now clearer, revealed wear and heartache painted with hope. "Thank you," it breathed out, shimmering softly, and began to dissolve into a cascade of glimmering particles. "Wait. No." I cried out, a surge of reliance gripping me again. "Can't you stay? You don't have to go." But it continued to fade, sparkling in the bright light as it evaporated into the air, like a wilting flower returning to dust. The last thing I caught was a soft whisper echoing through me, "You have set me free." I collapsed onto the floor, breathing hard, pulse racing. The room felt different, lighter, as if a weight I hadn't realized I carried had finally lifted. But as my heart began to stabilize, I noticed something else. Shadows still lingered, curling along the edges of my apartment like unwelcome guests. I felt a tinge of doubt swelling within me. What had truly been vanquished? I moved slowly toward the window, peering out into the darkness beyond, sensing the flickers of uncertainty still dancing among the night. Just as I began to regain my sense of peace, unfamiliar whispers wafted through the open window, soft, distant, and haunting. Faces flickered in the glass, glimpses of lives lost, echoing old sorrows amongst the wind. Whatever I had released was not the end, it was just the beginning. In that old brick apartment, comfort still seemed an illusion, shadows remained as companions, and echoes lingered, demanding to be heard. I had escaped one threat, but others loomed beyond the veil of the ordinary, waiting for someone to pay attention. I turned away from the window, heart heavy but resolved, forever burdened with more questions than answers. Because in this world, nothing ever truly vanished. It simply awaited another chance to be summoned.